Hi, it's Ashley from Sweet Dreams Bake Shop, and today we're going to be talking about 5 fails that you might have when you're throwing a party. Now, it is a baking and cake decorating channel, so of course I'm going to be focusing on the dessert table and the decorating aspect of the party. So let's get into it. So the biggest mistake I usually see with decorations at a party is that things tend to look a little bit sparse. And the reason is this: you really have to consider your venue. Where are you going to be placing your decorations, and how can you make it look super full without having to spend a ton of money? You don't want to be spending a whole lot of money on decorations because there's so many other parts to a party, and all of those things can run you a very costly bill. But if you want that really nice looking party, then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to situate your decor in the proper areas. Where I usually put my decor is in the opening area because that's where I know where guests are for sure going to have to walk through. It also helps set the tone of the party. So what type of decor do I usually put in the entrance? It's usually going to be something like balloons, and I'm talking about balloon arches. And these are really easy to make, and it really makes your entrance look nice and full. They're also a cheaper option compared to things like helium balloons because all you need to do is you need to use your own air, or you can use a balloon pump and you string it with a little bit of fishing wire through the bottoms of the balloons, and then you end up with this beautiful balloon garland. And it's one of those decorations that can make areas look really transformative and really beautiful with not too much effort, and not a whole lot of finesse is needed. The other area where I put a lot of decorations in is my party table. And that brings me to fail number 2. I want to make note that all the pictures that you're going to be seeing today are from parties that I have been involved with planning, or I fully executed them all by myself or with a team member. So here are the do's and don'ts of your dessert table. Do make sure that you choose a table that is a little bit smaller. Because we generally throw parties that don't have over 100 guests, chances are they're not going to be eating 70 cupcakes. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you choose an area that is small but large enough to hold everything that you want to place on there.
This was one of the very first parties that I ever put together, and you'll notice that I have a lot of empty room at the front. Had I pushed all of those things a little bit more forward, I think the table would have looked a lot more cohesive and Instagrammable. Alternatively, I should have chosen a table that was a little bit smaller.
You don't want to have things spread out. As soon as you have things spread out, it kind of throws off the whole look of the table, and it doesn't look full enough. It looks like something's missing.
Despite the fact that we have a beautiful cake here and really beautiful cupcakes, and the decor is very well put together, it does not look that professional to me. And that's not only because we used a plastic tablecloth for this, but as you can see, all those bubbles being spread out, and there's really not too much stuff on the table. There needs to be a lot more things on the table for there to be interest.
Do elevate different parts of your table. Having differing heights is really going to make it eye-catching and look different and professional.
I used lots of different things to help level this dessert table. So what I used was some differing cake stands. I also used some boxes that I found from Michael's, which I spray painted white, and then I covered it in bling wrap. If you do throw a lot of parties, it's good to invest in things like those boxes because then you can utilize them for lots of different parties. You can just rip off that bling wrap and cover it with different things, or you can just leave it white and as is.
Do have a variety of desserts, but make sure that you have enough of each dessert. If you have too much variety, but you only have 12 of each thing, it's going to look a little bit strange, and it's going to be hard for you to plan what you're going to do with those things. Plan out what containers you're going to use for which desserts and how you are going to display them.
When planning for this ice cream themed birthday party that I put on for my niece, I really had to think about which desserts I could make in bulk and ahead of time as well. So I made all of the cookies and macarons here well in advance, and I also did some meringues with her little face on them. Now, understandably, you might not be into doing that much DIY, which I completely understand, so I want to show you what I did with the ice cream bar near at the bottom. All of those toppings are completely store-bought. I didn't have to lift a finger, but what I did was I did pare down on the number of toppings that I had so that I could fully fill up those little plastic vases there. Again, if you are going to be throwing a lot of parties in the future, then investing in some plastic vases like this is a great idea because you can transform them to look however you would like for each party. I just hot glued some bling wrap onto here for my last party, but it can easily be taken off.
Do add a little bit of whim to your tables. If everything is perfectly neat and tidy and perpendicular all the way throughout your table, it tends not to look as nice. That being said, of course you can make things a little bit more perfect. For example, if you have a tower in the middle and then you want two cakes that look exactly the same on either side, that can look really, really beautiful. But if you align everything perfectly all the way through your table, then things start to look a little bit weird.
Here is an example of a dessert table setup that I had that was a little bit more symmetrical. But if you notice, all of those white pedestals there are kind of at an angle and things still have a little bit of a whimsy feel. The cake in the center is also very imperfect in its structure, so that also helps to mix things up just a little bit and make sure that not everything looks too perfect.
Do look for inspiration on the internet. If you find something that you really like, it's really important that you actually look at every single detail of what it is that you're trying to execute and which parts of the picture that you like. Sometimes you can look at a photo and think, oh, I want it just like that, but it might not work with your vision overall or work with the logistics of your party. Save your money when possible. So here are the areas that I really like to save on. Now, of course, I understand that maybe not everybody is a cake decorator or cookie decorator. I save a ton on making my own cookies and cakes. If you want to DIY your own cookies and cakes, I have a ton of tutorials. I will put them up in that right-hand corner so you can go and check any of them out. They're really accessible so you can do them from home. But I also understand that not everybody wants to do that. So here is where you can save your money. You can buy cheaper things like Oreos or candies or pre-made things, but just make sure that you put them in really nice glasses, for example. You can also save a lot of budget on your party if you make the food yourself, so all of the savory foods. And please, make sure you don't put these on your dessert table. It will wreck the whole ambiance of your party.
If your savory foods do go with the theme of your party, then you can definitely incorporate them like I did with this Paris-themed party. We really wanted to have a bread and cheese-themed table, so we really made sure to make it a focal point.
Some luxury items that I would spring for is maybe like a freestanding background. Depending on where you're having your party, it could be really tricky to make sure that the space is transformative. So if you're doing it in your house, for example, maybe there are areas that your kids play in that you don't want seen, or maybe you just want to cover up the TV for the party because your open space is in your living room. Then investing in something like a backdrop rental is something that I would pay for. And those can run you from around $50 to $200. So majority of your budget would obviously be going there. Things that I wouldn't spend money on are for people to come and set up balloon arches for me. Something like that is something you can do on your own. Same thing goes with something like a photo booth or a photo wall. I would also spend on something like renting a really cool element. For example, maybe if I wanted a cotton candy maker there, then I would invest in that because I know that's probably something very thematic and something I'm not going to use again. But I want it for that party. That means though that I'm gonna put in the work elsewhere. So I'm gonna make a super over-the-top cake myself. I'm gonna make all the sandwiches myself. I'm gonna make all the appetizers for myself. And maybe I'm only serving flavored water or something like that. Just make sure you play with your budget, but choose which things have to be purchased at a luxury price. I've seen a lot of people go wrong here, including me. And this is about choosing the proper theme. So when choosing your theme, you really have to think about what are your strengths. For example, I really love florals. If you haven't seen my last, 4 videos on doing buttercream and fondant florals. Anyway, I know that I would really love to put something girly together and something really glam and gardeny maybe. But we've all been there where our child or somebody else is asking for a Paw Patrol party or a Minnie or Mickey Mouse party. And if that's not your strength, that's okay. But you gotta make it work somehow. Character parties can end up looking really childish, and I mean it may look like your child actually decorated the party. And of course, if you are fine with that, then please do that. A relaxed birthday party is also really nice. But if you want it to look a little bit more professional, these are the errors that people usually run into. Generally, if you're going for some sort of character party, then all of the plates, napkins, and all of those extra bells and whistles that they sell at party stores generally tend to follow the exact same color palette the whole way through. And on top of that, you're then confined to really buying the things that they provide for you. Whenever I do character parties, I really like to make sure that I build a color palette first. And then I go and I purchase the things that fit into that color palette. So for example, I threw this huge Minnie Mouse birthday party, and what I did was I built a color palette first. I actually didn't buy any napkins or plates or anything like that that had to do with Minnie Mouse. Everything else was kind of DIY, and in that way I was able to make the party look different. I don't want my parties to look like everybody else's, which is why I tend to build a color palette. You might want to do a party that has a completely different theme than you've ever seen.
Like this one that I did for my son's gender reveal. I had never seen this done before. I'm actually seeing more of it pop up now after I did this, and this became a little bit Pinterest famous, I want to say. But the reason that I was able to execute this theme is because I know the theme really well. I know every Friends quote and episode, so I was able to come up with some really creative ideas. You'll notice that I stuck to a very particular color palette. I was also able to save a lot of money because obviously my friend and I made these desserts together. Now, of course, if you're doing a theme that's a little bit more obscure, but you're not maybe a cake decorator or someone that likes doing those things, then prepare to DIY elsewhere or be prepared to spend a little bit more.
So all in all, try to avoid themes that you know you probably can't execute properly, whether that be because the stores just aren't selling the things that you need around you, or if maybe you're finding things only online, but of course during this time, things take months sometimes to get to us. Finally, consider the location of your party. Location is so important. Now, let's talk about the actual picking of a location. So if you want to go to a venue and you're having a really fancy party, you really need to think about how big the venue is and how much decor you're really going to need to make sure that it has that immersive feel. If your ceilings are super high in the place that you've chosen, it can be really tricky to decorate. So keep that in mind when you are budgeting. Let's scale it down a little bit and think about location within a house. You really need to think about where you are locating the majority of your desserts and the wow factors of your party. Put whatever wow factors you have at your party in a very central, high traffic location. And now, of course, I'm talking about when we can actually have people over and have parties. Here's the other thing. If you're wanting to throw a professional looking party, then chances are things like pictures really matter to you. So you definitely need to think about lighting location. Does the natural light hit the areas that you're going to want to photograph and maybe use for Instagram or Pinterest or just your family albums? Thanks so much for watching, guys. I know during this time we're having to DIY a lot of things and pare down on our gatherings, but that doesn't mean you can't have an amazing professional looking party. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you can be part of this sweetie fam. Right now I'm uploading daily baking tutorials, baking tips, and sometimes I occasionally talk about my life on YouTube. Also, be sure to comment, request, or ask a question. I love hearing from you guys. Bye!